Hope everyone's doing well so far. I've seen a few questions in course messages that I've replied back to. Um, but going forward, you should see a series of video. I won't call them lectures, but more of pointers to help you out through the units in the tutorials. This particular video is going to cover Unit E, which is the second unit covering Microsoft Word. Unit E discusses enhancing a document. So let's take a look at our PowerPoint presentation that's located in Blackboard, and you'll notice, or if you haven't found these already, I believe I mentioned this in my last video, all the PowerPoint presentations for this course are located under Helpful Videos and Notes, and that's on the left-hand menu. Once the page loads, give it just a second. Alright, there we go. Microsoft Word 2013 Tutorials and Notes. Open the folder, and you should see several files. Word, Unit D, PowerPoint, Unit E, PowerPoint's the one we're going to cover in just a second, and then Word, Unit F, PowerPoint. So these are where the PowerPoint files that I'm covering or touching on in these videos are located. Okay, so just want to make sure everybody knows where to find those. I suggest reviewing those. The PowerPoints are more supporting information. Really, the meat of this course, as I've mentioned before, is covered in the tutorials. So I highly recommend that you take time to go through each tutorial for each unit and make sure that you understand how to perform those tasks in the tutorial. So, and just to make sure everybody understands what I mean when I say tutorial, for example, in your textbook, Unit E tutorial begins on page 128 and goes through page 143. So those exercises on beginning on page 128 and ending on 143 are the exercises for the Unit E tutorial. Now, if I haven't mentioned it before, you should have noticed it when you read the course introduction page. There are also some practice page. There's some pages that are colored like a light yellow or gold color at the end of each unit that cover some practice questions and reviews for each unit. You are not to do those, so please do not spend any time on the practice section of each unit. I just want you covering or going through and performing the function or the tasks rather on the white pages of each unit tutorial. So there's no need to spend any time on the light colored yellow pages unless you just want to do it. You won't receive any credit for doing any of that work, so I don't recommend spending much time on those pages unless you just absolutely want to. Okay, so let's see. Let's get to our PowerPoint presentation. So the objectives in this unit are going to be enhancing a document, and to do that, that consists of learning how to change font and font size, learning how to change font color, style, and effects, change alignment and line spacing, change margin settings. We're going to learn how to set tabs, set indents, add bulleted and numbered lists, and apply styles. Okay, so those are the objectives. Those are what we're going to cover in this brief video. I've downloaded the data file for Unit E, which is file E1. And just a quick pointer, for all of the units, you should only have to submit one data file. I know when you open up the folder that contains all of the data files for this course, you'll see 5, maybe 6, sometimes 7 data files per unit. Typically, the first file is the one that you will want to download, and that's going to be the file that you'll use to complete your tutorial. Now, you always want to follow the instructions in the book, but 9 times out of 10 that will be the case. Also, if you've noticed, there was not a data file for Unit C, and there is one other unit, I believe it is Unit either M or O that does not have a data file. But usually the first page of each tutorial in the unit, for the units, will tell you which file to use. C does not have one, and it looks like that it may be O. I'll have to go through and find it. But if you come upon a tutorial that does not have, or on the first page it does not reference a data file, it just simply asks you to create one, then that will be the one that I'm referring to. And as I go back through the textbook, when I get to that video, I will be sure to point that out. Okay, so for Unit E, we're going to cover these concepts that I touched on just a minute ago and the objectives. First one is changing font and font size. Okay, the font is going to be, is going to be the way the text appears. It's got font face. In this case, our font is Calibri, which is shown up here in the drop-down box in the font group. And one pointer, as you can see, as I hover over the font drop-down list, you'll see that on the screen below it, I have a screen tip that tells me what that box is, and you can see that it says font. So that's something very important to remember, is if you get into a situation, let's say like a test, where you're not sure what feature or function that you're trying to apply is, that's a good way to locate it. Begin hovering over the icons on the ribbon, and you can find the one that you're looking for. You can see as I hover over the icons on the ribbon, it tells me what these are. So just a tip. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can hover, and typically you can find it that way. Okay, so just as an example, if I wanted to change the font for the words outdoor designs, I could navigate up to my font drop-down menu, click the arrow to the right, and you can see I have all sorts of choices. I have just dozens and dozens of choices to select from. So the one I'm going to select will be Times New Roman. That's one that most people are probably familiar with, and you can see that font has changed. So when I highlight that font now in the font box, you'll see that it's designated as Times New Roman. If I look at the text underneath, you can see it's still set to the Calibri font. Okay, so that's how you change the font. Highlight the text, change it in the font box. Okay. Next objective was font size. If I want to change the font size of this text, I can come up to the font size text box. You can see by hovering over it, it lets me know that that is the correct place to change my font size. Click the down arrow, and I can hover, and if you'll notice, the text in the background is changing as I hover over over the different font size numbers, or the different font sizes, probably a better way to say that, and gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. So if I want to know how big the font's going to be, in the past you had to apply the font, and then you click the number, it would change the font. If you didn't like it, then you had to go back and do it over. Here you can just simply hover your mouse over the different font sizes and get an idea of what the font will look like before you apply it, which is just a shortcut and speeds things up. So I'm going to go with font size, let's just say 20 for this particular example. Alright, so now I've changed the font on the first line to Times New Roman. That's the font, and the font size to 20. So that's how you enhance your document, by changing the font and font size. And there's many combinations that you can use to make your document look the way you want to. Alright, so let's take a look at the next couple of concepts, which were, let's see, change font color, style, and effects. Okay, so this is covered on page 130 of your textbook. So the font color is just simply the color of the font. So in this case, our color is black. And if you'll notice in the font box, this is where all of your changes to your font can be made is in the font box on the ribbon on the Home tab. I've got a capital letter A underlined in red that says font color when I hover over it. So that's where you change your font color. Now if you'll notice at the top, automatic, that is the default color, and that is a black color. If I want to change it to something a little different, let's say something maybe like a blue, a light blue, or even a dark blue, all I have to do is find the color that I would like. I can click it and it'll apply that change. Now it may be hard to tell, but this color of font of text and that color is not the same. They're different. Okay? Or I can highlight this text and change it to a different color. And if you'll notice, when I highlight that text, I get my I get the mini toolbar that appears, and it also has some of the same shortcuts. In this case, it does have the font color. So I'm going to click the down arrow again, and this time I'm going to try a more custom color. So I'm going to click the More Colors button, and you can see I have pretty much every color available to me in this with using the custom feature. So I'm going to click something that's more of a darker blue, and you can see in the bottom right corner it shows me what the new color will be and what the current color will be. So I'm going to click OK and apply it, and there's my new color. Alright, so that's how you change the font color. The font style, those are more of attributes such as bold or italicized text. Sometimes even underline can be considered a font style. So in this case, I'm going to go to the second line. I'm going to highlight this line of text, and anytime I want to bold, italicize, or underline text, I'll highlight the text that I want to use, or I want to perform that, apply that style against, and I can come to the toolbar in the font group, and I can bold it. You can see how the font got heavier when I click the bold button. If I want to italicize it, I click the italicize button, and now you can see the font or the text is slanted to the left to give it a more, give it a different appearance. It makes it stand out more. And then lastly, the underline. If I want to underline that text, I can highlight that text, select the underline button in the font group, and it underlines that text. Whoops. So that's how you can apply a font style to text in your document. Okay. The last concept on page 130 in Unit E is a font effect. What a font effect is, that's going to be something that's considered a special enhancement, like a shadow or a strike through, and those are located, and I'm going to apply this to the first sentence of our paragraph, in the, you see the arrow in the bottom right corner of the font group. Click that. It'll give you additional features that you can apply. Okay, here below you see a list of effects. Now one reminder, I am using Microsoft Office 2007, but these effects should still be available in Office 2013. So if anyone has questions about what I'm doing, or if your Microsoft Office does not look exactly the same as mine, you can reach out and I can help you with that. So for example, if I wanted to strike through that line of text, and you can get a preview below of what it would look like. And sometimes this is done when you're editing a document, like between a group of people, so you can track changes. We can select the strike through option, click OK, and then now that first line of text is strike through. Okay, so that's how you apply a font effect. Okay, let's see, moving on, the next objective was changing alignment and line spacing. This is also done on the Home tab. We're going to apply this to the first paragraph. Actually, we're going to apply it to the entire body of the document, all the way down to free shipping. Okay, so again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the alignment of the text. Now this will be found in the paragraph group, and your alignment options are in the bottom. You see The first one on the left that's selected currently is align text to the left, so everything is left justified, which means that all of the words start on at the same point on the left-hand side of the screen, at the left-hand margin. So you can see if all the way down the left-hand side of the screen, those sentences start at the same point on the page when looking at it left to right. If you look at the right side of the page, you can see each line stops at a different point on the page. So it is, which tells me that it is justified to the left. All right. Also, by looking at the option selected in the paragraph group on the ribbon. So if I wanted to apply what we call a center justify, which each line of text is centered on the page, I would select the center button. And now you can see how it has changed the text appearance. They're all justified from the center, so each line should have the same amount of characters, or very close, on either side of the center of the page. So if in this case the center of the document is, let's see, we're looking at a 6.5 inch wide page, so that would be 3 1/4, which is going to be somewhere right in here. So that's the center of the page. There should be there should be an even number of characters on this side and an even number of characters on this side for each line. And that'll vary, the number of characters will vary from line to line, but that's what that's doing. It's centering the text on each line from the middle of the page. Alright, now let's take a look at align text right. Now you can see that all of the letters, or all of the sentences, the text, are aligned to the right. So they all stop at the same point. Each line of text does at the same point on each line on this page on the right. And then lastly, justify is a little more, it's a different feature, and you can see by the screen tip that it aligns the text to both the left and right margins, adding extra spaces between words as necessary. This creates a clean look along the left and right side of the page. Okay. So just a different way to justify text in a document. Alright, so we're going to go back to the align left, since that's what the default was, and that's what we're going to use for this sample exercise. Alright, so now let's take a look at line spacing. Line spacing is the number of blank lines in between the lines of text. Currently, and that can be found on the paragraph group on the ribbon, the icon looks like the one I'm pointing at. It's got an arrow pointing up and arrow pointing down. It represents lines of text with the dashed lines here, and then the drop down arrow gives you your options. Okay, so we want to double space our paragraphs, so I'm going to select 2.0. that's 2 line spaces, that's double spacing, and now you can see the difference. There's a double space between each line of text, and it does cause us to go onto another page because of the space that double spacing takes up. So that's what double spacing looks like. And you'll need to know how to do this when you complete your research paper. Line spacing, there is a particular format that's asked of you when you perform your research paper. Alright, so the next objective, let's see, change margin settings. Alright, so the margin settings are going to be the left and the right, top and the bottom. You have 4 margins. The margins can be found on the View tab. Actually, it's on the Page Layout tab, excuse me. But first things first, in order to effectively see our margins, we need to make sure that we have our ruler that I have across the top of the page. We need to make sure that that's active on everybody's version of Microsoft Office. So if it's not, the way you turn that on is you go to the View tab and you check Ruler. You can see when I uncheck it, the ruler goes away. When I check it, it adds the ruler. This helps us align. This helps us set margins. It also will help us set tabs and indents. It's also covered in this course, or excuse me, in this unit. Okay, excuse me, I had to pause briefly there. Alright, so once we turn on our ruler, we will go to the one page. We'll click the one page button. It'll help us give us a overall view of the document. And then we'll go to our page layout tab, and here we have our margins icon in the page setup box. We have a drop down arrow that gives us several options. Okay. First one we're going to do is we're going to click narrow. And you can see when I click narrow that decreases the margins on the left, the right, the top, and the bottom. And if I go back and look, the narrow feature or narrow option for margins sets the margin for the top, left, bottom, and right, or top and bottom, left and right, to a 1/2 inch. Okay. The normal margins are at 1 inch. So that's 1 inch all the way around the page. And you can see when I click the 1 inch how much that changes it. Alright. You can also do a wide margin, which the top and bottom are set to 1 inch. The left and right are set to 2 inches. So those are wide margins. Not necessarily making the text wider across the page. The margins are wider. And let's see. You have some other options. You have a custom setting up top if you want to change your margins to look a particular way. Maybe you need a little extra space for text at the bottom of the page. You can adjust the bottom margin and maybe the top margin and leave the left and right margins alone. You have that option, and that would be a custom setting, and you can set those at the bottom using the custom margins. But we're going to revert back to the normal margins for this exercise. Alright. Let's see. The next objective is setting tabs. Now most everyone knows, and we'll go back to our normal view, what tabs are. You use tabs to indent with. Sometimes you use tabs to separate items in a list or a table in Microsoft Word. The default tab setting for Microsoft Word is having a tab set every 1/2 inch. So for example, if I wanted to add a tab to this line that I have where I have my insertion point set, you can see currently the margin is at right here. That's going to be at a 1/2 inch. If I press tab, it actually moves the whole paragraph over 1/2 inch. So here's 0, right here where my double arrow is, the middle of that double arrow. In the center of these two arrows, that's 1/2 inch. So you can see the default tab. I just pressed the tab key. I haven't done anything else. If I press it again, it moves it to the 1 inch. So you can see that the default tabs are in fact set to a 1/2 inch, every 1/2 inch on the ruler for the document. Now, if I want to set my tabs, which means I want to set a tab at maybe a awkward or not a unstandard or non-standard point on the screen, what I can do, and you'll notice this on page 136 of your textbook. Let's see, looks like when you get to number 6 on that page, we're at the bottom of the screen at that point, under product name, by product name. We want to set a tab at left tab, excuse me, at the 2.5 inch mark. Number 6 gives a some instructions of noticing the tab selector at the top of the vertical ruler. Okay, so the top of the vertical ruler, this ruler is the horizontal ruler. This over here, this ruler to the left, that is the vertical ruler. And they're talking about right here in the corner, that is the tab selector. So any tab that you set while the left tab selector is selected will change the left tab. Alright. So let's see, notice the tab selector is set at the left tab stop. We're going to click at the 2.5 inch mark. So right here is the 2.5 inch mark. And you can see it moved the first tab to 2.5 inches. Alright, so that's how you set the left tab. When I tab again, actually let's back up. Let's do this. Let's redo that. Let's highlight this entire group of text. I want the left tab to be the same for all 3 lines. And I do that by highlighting that text and then clicking the ruler at the 2.5 mark while making sure my left tab stop is set. That's the one selected on the left. Click it once and you can see they all moved to the 2.5 left tab mark. Okay. Now, in number 8, we want to set the right tab. So how do I do that? If you click the left tab button once, you'll see that the icon changes. Click it twice, you get the right tab stop. And you just keep clicking through. You notice it changes every time. That's the left tab stop. That's the center tab. That's a right tab. That is a decimal tab. If we use have any application to use the decimal. We have a bar tab. We have a first line indent. Notice the arrow pointing down. You see the arrows here? That top arrow? That's the first line indent indicator. Click again. We have a hanging indent. You'll notice that right here. That square at underneath the bottom arrow. Click one more time and we're back to the left tab stop. But we want to set the right tab, so we're going to click this twice and now we have the right tab stop. And when you hover, it should tell you that's the right tab. Okay, now that we've got our right tab icon set, and we're telling Microsoft Word that's the one we want to make the change to. We've got our lines of text we want to apply this to highlighted. We're going to click the 5 inch mark, which is right here. And now you can see our right tab. It's been changed to the 5 inch mark. That's on page 136. Please pay attention to that page when you're doing your tutorial. Alright, next we're going to set the indents. Okay, and you may have already guessed since we tabbed through our tab indicator over here on the left that we're going to do something similar to set the indents. Alright, so let's see. First thing we're going to do is scroll up to the 4 lines and begin with easy to build. And let's see, easy to build right here. So easy to build, ending with Manny, Naples, Florida. We're going to select those lines of text. Alright, if you want to know how I selected that, there's more than one way. You can click and drag. I'm holding down my left mouse key now and I'm just dragging down to highlight all the text that I need. Or I can click to the left of the beginning of the block of text I want to select, and then I can hold down the shift key and click to the right of the end of the block of text that I want to select, and then it'll highlight it. So there's more than one way usually in Microsoft Office to perform the same function. Okay, so now that I have got my text selected, I'm going to click the Home tab. And I have a couple of buttons that help me increase indent by some defaults that are already set, and that's located in the paragraph group here. And if you hover over these buttons, you can see that one is decrease indent. There's an arrow pointing to the left indicating it's going to decrease the indent, and then you have a button beside that, increase indent, which is going to move it to the right. Okay, so I'm going to click that one time. Alright, so now we're asked to position our cursor over the hanging indent identifier or marker on the ruler, and then click and hold so a vertical dotted line appears on the screen. So we're going to click and hold, and you can see there's my hanging indent, that dotted line. And now we're going to drag that to the 1.5 inch mark per the textbook, just like that. And you can see my text changed below. But why didn't all of it change? And that's because a hanging indent, if you'll notice at the top of page 138 in the paragraph above at the top of the page, in bold print about halfway through the paragraph, you'll see hanging indent is an indent where the first line of a paragraph is a line flush left with the margin, and all lines below are indented. So that's what you're looking at. The first line of the paragraph, flush with the margin. Flush with the margin. And this is, of course, this is based on the fact that we didn't increase our indent one time. And then the subsequent lines in that paragraph are indented. Okay, so that's how we arrived at that point. Now, let's see. We want to move the right indent marker hanging indent, left indent, first line indent. Excuse me, I had to pause for a second. Alright, so now we want to move the right indent marker. So that's going to be located on the right side here. When we click and drag, you can see my dotted line. When I click and hold on the right indent marker, that line's going to move with me. I'm moving to the 5.5 inch mark. I let off, and now there's my right indent. And now that text is indented at the 5.5 inch mark. Alright, so that is the hanging indent and the right indent marker. Now, we're going to go down to the last 3 lines of text in the document, and we're going to select those 3 lines. That would be these 3 lines here. Position our left indent marker on the ruler until the left indent screen tip appears. Then we're going to drag that left indent marker to the 1/2 inch mark on the ruler. So here is our left indent marker right here. Click and drag. And let's try that again. Let's see, that should move. Okay, there we go. You can see there is our left indent. Okay, let's try that again. I skipped a step. We want to make the left indent marker selected in our tab over here on our at the top of our vertical ruler, and we're going to drag that marker to the 1/2 inch, and there we go. Now there's our left indent. Alright, so that's tabs and indents. The next thing we're going to cover is bulleted and numbered lists. So in this case, these are fairly simple to perform, to add, to include. Looks like in your tutorial you're asked to apply a bulleted list to the key benefits by highlighting those text, those lines of text, as done here on the screen, and then your bulleted lists are also in the paragraph group. Hover over that icon, you'll see bullets. Click the down arrow and you'll be given some options. In this case, we're going to use a check mark bullet style, and you can see that those check marks are now applied, and that would be an example of a bulleted list. Alright, now we're going to scroll down to the top reasons to buy outdoor design products, highlight the reasons, and then we're going to click the numbered list in the paragraph group, and we're going to select that particular list style, numbered list style, and we have our numbered list. Alright, so those are the major concepts in Unit E. I hope you get some benefit from this video. If you have any question about anything that I've covered in this video or anything in the tutorial that you don't understand, please be sure to send me a message through Course Messages, and I'll reply to you as soon as possible. Thank you.